The news is packed with statistics and updates on the challenges we face as global citizens. Sometimes it can seem as though there are too many, from the climate crisis to the high rate of gender inequality around the world. Too many people living without access to medical care, and I am going to talk about a few of many global problems. What it means for a problem to become a global problem, or to be called a global problem, is that it has to affect the global community and environment, possibly in a catastrophic way, including environmental issues, political crises, health crises, social issues, and economic crises. Solutions to global issues generally require cooperation among nations. 2.1 billion people in countries undergoing urbanization have inaccessibility to clean drinking water as a result of pollution, poverty, and poor management of resources. Water resources are depleted by agriculture and industry energy production. To put into perspective, agriculture accounts for 70% of the reduction of water around the world, with 75% of a given country's water used for this purpose and depleted by contamination. Fortunately, there's been a recent increase in efforts to develop technology to combat contamination and reduce the rate of water depletion. Despite a surge in funding for some countries and increasing attention through social media, education continues to be a luxury around the globe. Reasons include gender preferences and poverty and child labor. The use of children in industry, according to UNICEF, 150 million children participate in laborious activities dangerous to their health. As one can imagine, this work hinders a child's ability to fully invest in education. Therefore, it's most challenging to bring education to sub-Saharan Africa, where the rates of children enrolled in primary education continues to stagger. In addition, fewer students successfully complete secondary education here. Violence is a global issue that exists in all shapes and sizes. Violence can be done towards a particular group like women or LGBTQ plus members, or it is an act that can be a result of mentally disturbed mind. There's also violence in response to economic stress. All these varying forms of violence lead to attention on the safety and prevention of such acts. However, there isn't much consideration on how an everyday person can help. In discussions about violence, the biggest questions to answer are: how is this violence used? How is it achieved or accessed? Does media have a role? How much is the foundation for a particular act of violence? Is personal? What is the overall goal? In 2015, the international poverty line was set to $19. This number means that a person is living in extreme poverty if they live below this line. According to this set line, more than 1.3 billion people are living in this extreme worldwide. This fact suggests that 1.3 billion people have difficulty obtaining food and shelter, regardless of the availability of homeless shelters and organizations. Current questions or topics to explore in an essay or research would be the cause of variation in wages on the international level and the nature and initiatives that can be taken to solve this global issue at large. What are the biggest global issues that the world is facing right now? All around the world, countries are facing new issues every single day on their own, but despite its borders, the world is constantly facing issues as a whole. What are the biggest global issues that the world is facing together? There are many that affect everybody and require attention from not just one country but every country. One of the top global issues today is the continent of Africa. Africa needs support both economically and socially in order to develop and protect human rights as well as build solid governments and better the lives of people living there. African countries also need support to promote democratic institutions in order for there to be peace among the nations. AIDS is another top global issue in the world today. Although new HIV infections have decreased significantly, the global response to HIV and AIDS has to continue to be powerful in order to wipe out the epidemic completely. The rights of children are another top global issue throughout many different countries. Millions of children do not have access to education, health, or protection. Every country should be expanding the opportunities for children and allowing them to exercise the rights that all humans should be allowed. Climate change is a significant issue that shifts weather patterns. This causes a threat to food production, rising sea levels, and many more negative impacts on nature. Climate change is a global issue that directly affects not only humans throughout the world, but animals and the economies and the ecosystem itself. Food insecurity is one of the biggest global issues. The world is facing right now about 795 million people in the world were malnourished between 2015 and 2016. Hunger is known to be the number one risk to human health worldwide, even greater than disease. Another global issue is inadequate access to clean water and the lack of sanitation hygiene that goes along with it. This is typically due to bad economics and infrastructure and often leads to deaths, especially in children, caused by diseases that are spread by unsanitary water. There are many more problems that the world is facing today, but these are the biggest global issues that the world needs to address now. Some of the issues listed affect not only the human race but animals and nature as well. From diseases to government, the world is facing global issues together every day. The global temperatures are rising and are estimated to increase from 2.6 degrees Celsius to 4.8 degrees Celsius by 2100. This would cause more severe weather crises with food and resources and the spread of diseases. The reduction of greenhouse emissions and the spreading of education on the importance of going green can help make a big difference. Lobbying governments and discussing policies to reduce carbon emissions and encouraging reforestation is an effective way of making progress with climate change. Pollution is one of the most difficult global issues to combat, as the umbrella term refers to ocean litter, pesticides and fertilizers, air, light and noise pollution. Clean water is essential for humans and animals, but more than 1 billion people don't have access to clean water due to pollution from toxic substances, sewage or industrial waste. It is of the utmost importance that people all over the world begin working to minimize the various types of pollution in order to better the health of the planet and all those living on it. The UN is a perfect example of preventing the lack of security and well-being that is a serious global issue. Through its efforts with regional organizations and representatives that are skilled in security, the UN is working towards increasing the well-being of people throughout the world. More than 72 million children throughout the globe that are the age to be in primary education are not enrolled in school. This can be attributed to inequality and marginalization as well as poverty. Fortunately, there are many organizations that work directly with the issue of education, providing the proper tools and resources to aid schools. Without the necessary education skills for employment, many people, particularly 15 to 24 years old, struggle to find jobs and create a proper living for themselves and their families. This leads to a lack of necessary resources such as enough food, clothing, transportation, and proper living conditions. Fortunately, there are organizations throughout the world teaching people in need the skills for jobs and interviewing, helping to lift people from various. Corruption is a major cause of poverty, considering how it affects the poor the most. Eroding political and economic development, democracy, and more. Corruption can be detrimental to the safety and well-being of citizens living with the corrupted vicinity, and can cause an increase in violence and physical threats without as much regulation in the government. Currently, there are about 795 million people who do not have enough to eat. Long-term success to ending world hunger starts with ending poverty. With fighting poverty through proper training for employment, education, teaching of cooking and gardening skills, people who are suffering will be more likely to get jobs, earn enough money to buy food, and even learn how to make their own food to save money. The United Nations reports that by the beginning of the 21st century, an estimated 185 million people over the age of 15 were consuming drugs globally. The drugs most commonly used are marijuana, cocaine, alcohol, stimulants, and volatile solvents. Different classes of people, both poor and rich, partake in substance abuse, and it is a persistent issue throughout the world. Petitions and projects are in progress to end the global issue of substance abuse. Terrorism is an issue throughout the world that causes fear and insecurity, violence and death. Across the globe, terrorists attack innocent people, often without warning. This makes civilians feel defenseless in their everyday lives, making national security a higher priority in key in combating terrorism, as well as promoting justice and wrongdoings to illustrate the enforcement of the law and the serious punishment for terror crimes. Weak international labor laws are a global issue because they hurt workers in the developing world and the economies of developed nations. Laws must exist to protect workers' rights while allowing multinational firms to do business. The World Bank urges countries to cooperate and strengthen labor laws to prevent abuses and ensure fair wages. At the same time, the laws must facilitate wealth creation. Without optimal rules, the world economy weakens and workers face terrible conditions. Besides malnutrition, there are many other issues affecting health on a global scale. In the past, the main topic focus was communicable diseases like hepatitis, cholera, malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV. Increased access to clean water and improved education around proper sanitation resulted in an overall decrease in the prevalence of transferable diseases worldwide. But while current strategies to prevent disease are working, efforts to improve sanitation shouldn't slow down. While teaching good hygiene practices is still beneficial, the importance of good nutritional education and preventing personal harm is now emphasized. For example, explain the dangers of excessive alcohol consumption, smoking tobacco, using unsafe cooking fuels, driving recklessly. Likewise, many low-income countries lack emergency response resources. This means that providing opportunities for community members to learn first aid skills can help to save lives. But while the focus of the global healthcare community now shifted to non-communicable diseases like cancer, diabetes, chronic respiratory and cardiovascular diseases, communicable diseases remain a burden in low-income settings. Now, communicable diseases account for 71% of all deaths annually, and 77% of these occur in low and middle-income countries.